Hey y'all, my name is Rylan. Welcome to my channel. I feel like I start off every single wrap-up video in the same way because every single month I cannot believe that the previous month has already ended and we've moved on into another month of the year. I feel like time just flies the older I get, and I'm not sure if I love it all the way or not, but we're here. We are in December, and that means that I have to do my November wrap-up, and very excited about what I was able to accomplish in November in terms of reading. I did film several reading vlogs, which is very exciting. I read a bunch of book of the month books and was really able to prioritize my physical reading, which is great because I was able to knock off several books from my physical TBR, which is a goal that I have currently. So we'll go ahead and dive into my November wrap-up. I do tend to do my wrap-ups in a rapid review style, so I won't talk too much about these books. A lot of them are also going to be featured if they haven't already been featured in reading vlogs or book review videos, etc. So a lot of these books will be seen in other videos on my channel. If they haven't been posted already, they will be posted in the next couple of weeks during Bookmas. Let's go ahead and dive into the books that I read. Sometimes I do stats for my wrap-ups. I don't really have that this time around. I'm kind of just flying by the seat of my pants because I decided to film this video about 1 hour ago and it's only 7:40 in the morning, so we're still waking up, still trying to figure out what the heck is going on for today, and I'm just here to give y'all my wrap-up. I can tell you though, however, that I read 12 books in the month of November, which is very, very good for me. I feel like I did a really great job of balancing schoolwork but also like giving myself time to read this past month. I've also had things ramping up with work, so it's been a very busy month, but also I feel like I've been able to prioritize reading still, which has been very, very nice. Very much has helped my stress levels and just like my overall peace of mind, because reading of course is a hobby that for me kind of just settles me, calms me down, gives me a reason to escape for a little bit. So I'm very glad about the books that I was able to get to this month. Out of the 12 books that I read in the month of November, 8 of them were physical, and then the rest were either from my library or from Kindle Unlimited or NetGalley. So very much had a wide range of reading this month, and I really, really enjoyed that. But I really, really liked the fact that I was able to read 8 books off my physical TBR, and a bunch of these books had been on my shelves for quite a bit of time. So it's great. I'm very excited about it still, and I keep saying that. I always use that same phrase over and over again in my videos, but it's true. That's just how I feel. We'll go ahead and go in order of the books as I read them, starting from November 1st through the 30th. So first up for this month is a library book that I had, which was Guillotine by Delilah S. Dawson. This is about our female main character who decides to date this wealthy man because of his connections that he has to a very famous fashion magazine that she really wants to work for. So she ends up getting roped into going on this Easter trip, I think, to a private island that doesn't exist to anybody but this family, and when they're there everything goes horribly wrong. People end up getting murdered. There's this huge heist, I guess thing you could consider it, that happens because this family that is a part of this man that she's dating is not a great family, and so there's a lot of revenge that happens in this book, a lot of death, a lot of hunting, and it was very, very interesting. I gave this book 3 stars. It is a novella type book, I would say. I'm not even sure that it's 200 pages, so while I really, really did enjoy it and it was a very quick read, I felt like there was some stuff that was missing, especially regarding this very wealthy family that we see through our main character's eyes, and kind of more of the background things regarding that. I also felt like the jump from her deciding to date him to her going to this island was very, very rapid and included very, very little time happening, and I just kind of wanted more, I think, from this book overall. I did like it. I gave it 3 stars. This cover is stunning, but I think I needed it to be longer to really be able to dive into the story. But if you love a book about female rage, this one is probably for you. I will have content warnings for this book as well as all the other books that I mentioned in the description down below, as per usual, if you would like to check those out. I will also have Amazon links to all these books listed in the description. If you purchase anything using these links, I will earn a small commission at no extra cost to you. I always appreciate the support to my channel from y'all, and I just want to say thank you about that. But moving on to my next book. Next up, I have Under the Surface by Diana Urban. This is a young adult thriller that came out this year, I think. I read it on NetGalley. It is about a group of students who go to Paris, and a couple of them get trapped in the catacombs underneath the surface. I really enjoyed this one, more so than I have enjoyed this author's other books. This is my third book that I've read by her and the highest book that I've rated at 4 stars, and I had a really fun time with it. It's very much a cult story. It's an isolation story. There's a lot of plot twists that happen in this book. You follow multiple perspectives. You follow our main character who's trapped in the catacombs, as well as the love interest, I guess, who is still above the surface and trying to figure out what happened to the group of students that disappeared and is trapped underneath the ground. So I thought this book was a very intense and fun thriller. I think it could have used some more cult things, especially because we were only really introduced to that in the very back half of the book, but I still had a lot of fun with this one. I'm always a sucker for books about cults, and I thought that this one was very unique, and I just kind of went along with the ride for this one, so I personally enjoyed it. After those 2 books, I went on a very big book of the month spree. So I've got 4 book of the month books to talk about first, and then I have a couple more later on in this wrap up. But first up, I have Sleep Tight by J.H. Markert. I read this book and 2 others for a book of the month catch-up vlog, I guess you could call it, and I gave this book 4 stars. Again, if you love cults, this one is probably for you. This is about a cult that stemmed from a serial killer who was found decades before with tens of bodies in his house and was recently put to death on death row, I think is the title, is the words that they call it, right? I think. I don't know why I'm blanking on that right now. He just was put to death, and the cult is very active still around this town where he was committing all these murders before he went to prison and everything like that. And our main character, whose name is Tess, her daughter goes missing at the beginning of this book from people involved in this cult, and so you get a bunch of murders that happen with people that she is connected to as a detective, and as her father was a detective as well. You get all those connections, and you get to really see this cult play out in the aftermath of their quote-unquote leader's death. And very mysterious, very, very culty, dark and eerie. I really enjoyed it. There was a little bit of confusion for me, at least, in terms of the POVs, because we follow a bunch of POVs and not all of them were super clear to me until the very end of the book, but I still very much ended up enjoying this one. I love book of the month's picks recently, and this one very much recommend. For that same vlog, I also read First Lie Wins by Ashley Elston, and I gave this book 3 stars. I enjoyed it. It is the author's adult thriller debut, and I thought that it was a very good time. I was confused on it personally, and I'll talk about that in 1 second, but this is a thriller about a woman who plays the roles of different identities for her job. She works for this man. We have no idea his real identity, and her current mark is in a small town or a city, and she starts dating him and is supposed to find out what things he's kind of doing on the side that are secretive and illegal, and she's supposed to report back to her boss. We're also following past marks that she has had and past identities that she's had and how they are all actually tying together. And that was kind of where my confusion came in for this one, because there's this very big overarching secret thing that the main character is doing, and it's not quite clear what actually is going on until the very end of the book, which makes sense because thriller, plot twist, whatever. But I feel like you have to be able to drop more hints without being too obvious, because if not, I was personally a little bit lost and confused, because we do follow like I think 6 timelines total in this one. So while I really did enjoy it, especially the plot twists at the end, I was a little bit confused during big chunks of the book and couldn't quite figure out how the whole picture fit together. And I think that more hints could have been dropped earlier on in the book to kind of help with the suspense of wanting to know what was happening, because for the most part I was kind of just confused. Still very much enjoyed this one, would read more from the author, but not my favorite book, unfortunately. And then finally, for that vlog, which I will have tagged above if it hasn't already popped up, is Like Mother Like Daughter by Kimberly McCreight. This is a legal thriller, or a lawyer thriller, I guess, and it is about a mother who goes missing and her daughter finds a little bit of blood and a missing shoe, I think, in the house when she goes home to visit. And so we're following the mother leading up to her disappearance, as well as the daughter in the present timeline, trying to figure out what's happened to her mom. I like this one. I was really enjoying it for like the first 70% of the book. But there was one part of this book that I didn't quite understand the need to be in it, and when the story ended that way, I just couldn't quite be happy about that because I didn't feel like that was the point of the book. But to conclude the book on this note of this little legal trouble that was happening kind of annoyed me, honestly. I'm also not a big legal or law person, so it did take me a little bit to kind of place my feet into some of the jargon. Not jargon, if that, I don't know if that's the right word to describe this book, but there are trial cases and there are some, I guess, kind of lawyer or legal jargon that is mentioned in this book that I couldn't quite understand, so that kind of threw me out of the story a little bit when we kind of got to those sections where they had cases included. Whether or not they were for like the physical current plot of the story, there were still some of those cases or reports thrown into the book, and I couldn't quite place my foot into those. So not my favorite thriller either, unfortunately. I have read 2 of this author's other books and really loved one of them and liked the other one. I will say I do remember about those books, because I don't remember much, is that they were very interesting plot twists, and this book had a crazy plot twist that makes this title sound a little bit gross when you get to that plot twist, but it's crazy. It did make me gasp. I definitely flipped out a little bit because it was very unexpected, and I love that part of the book. But this book wrapped up my book of the month catch-up vlog, although I still have 3 more book of the month books that I read in the month of November. Next up, I read One Day in December by Josie Silver, and I gave this book 4.5 stars. I really enjoyed this one. If you're looking for a cozy, wintry holiday romance, there's not a ton of Christmas in it, but there's a lot of December, which is very holiday-y. I feel like that's not a word, but that's okay. This is a tension and angst-filled contemporary fiction novel with some romance sprinkled in about our 2 main characters, Lori and Jack, I think was his name. This book is also going to be in a reading vlog that probably just came out when you're seeing this video, but it follows them in the course of several years and how they first saw each other at a bus stop and made eye contact. Lori knew that they were supposed to be together, but nothing happens. He does not get on the bus. She does not get off the bus, and so she's later introduced to him as her best friend's boyfriend, and so she's like, I can't do anything about this now. I don't want to ruin my best friend's happiness. And so a lot of years pass as they can't be together and things happen and the doors just aren't opening up for them, and so you kind of watch them both crumbling and being put back together and crumbling again and trying to figure out how to navigate what it means to find your person but not being able to be with them in the present time. I really enjoyed this one. I did end up getting a little bit frustrated with the back and forth of that we can't, they could be together but they're not together, and that was just kind of frustrating to me because it happens so often. I know why it happened. By the end I was kind of just like, why are we still doing this? But I did end up crying with this one in a car dealership. I just think it's so funny, so I've mentioned it like 3 times in various videos and I did really enjoy the angst with this one. I would love to reread this one next December and annotate it because my copy is not annotated or tabbed, and I wish I had done that the first time around, but I did not. So hopefully next year I will reread this one and tab it because I really did love it. 4.5 stars to this book. Definitely put me in kind of a holiday mood. So I read a couple other Christmas romances as well, and we'll get to those in just a minute, but kind of I thought the perfect book to just kind of kick off winter, I guess, even though it did make me cry. So there's that, but loved this book so much. Immediately after that Christmas romance, also for my holiday romance vlog, I read When the Fake Snow Falls by Heather Garvin. This is a fake dating small town Christmas romance about our 2 main characters who meet in a coffee shop and decide to do the whole friends thing. She will not date him because she thinks that he's a player, and he really wants to kind of show her that he's not and that he actually really likes her. I love this book. Heather Garvin is an indie author that I've read from in the past and have really enjoyed her stuff, and when I got an ARC of this book from NetGalley, I could not wait to binge it. So I read this book in less than 24 hours, if that says anything about it. If you're looking for something very cozy with just 1 to 2 spicy scenes, would definitely recommend this one. Even though it takes place in Florida where, you know, there's no snow and things like that, I thought the author did a very fun job of making the characters in the Christmas spirit and doing other things to kind of like bring about that joy. And I was giggling through this book, I was smiling, I really loved it, and could have kept reading about these characters for forever. So absolutely love this one. It gave this book 5 stars. I think it's my only 5-star read from the month of November, but still had some really great books that I read, but this one is definitely my favorite one from this month that I read, and would highly recommend checking out this author in general and supporting this indie author. I love this book. The perfect book for Christmas, in my opinion. Next up, I read The Reappearance of Rachel Price, which was also a book of the month book for me, thankfully. This is a young adult thriller about a girl whose mom comes back after being missing for 16 years, I think, and you're following this all happening as a documentary was being filmed about their family before her mom came back. And so the documentary is happening still when the mother reappears, and everything changes, and our main character finds out the truth about what happened to her mom all those years ago and where she's been and how her family ties into that. I gave this book 3 stars. Not my favorite book by Holly Jackson. I've actually only read one other one, but this book is huge. I do not think it needed to be this long. By the end of the book, there was so much back and forth in this one that I was kind of over it. Too much happened, I think, in the last 30% of this book, and by the end of it, I was kind of just dazed. I didn't know what was going on. I was confused. I was frustrated a little bit because I just felt like everything happened at once and it was just very overwhelming, but not in like a great way. This was a very captivating book. I did listen to it pretty quickly because I also had the audiobook for it, but it's not a book that I loved personally. By the end, I was kind of just over it because 1, big book, 2, too much happened, and in my opinion, I think there are too many plot twists that the story became less believable to me, and I kind of stopped caring because it was just a lot going on in this one. So I didn't love this book. I do really want to read the rest of the A Good Girl's Guide to Murder series because I have not read the second 2 books, but for right now, I think I'm good on Holly Jackson. I did not love this one, sadly, but I will give her more reads in the future, hopefully, whenever I can get to them. But yeah, that was this one, unfortunately. Very bummed about it, but that's okay. I got another book of the month book checked off my list, so that's great. The last ebook that I read in the month of November, which I got from Kindle Unlimited, was How My Neighbor Stole Christmas by Megan Quinn, also in my holiday romance reading vlog. This is about our main character's story, who is in Colorado helping her aunt after she had a hip surgery. She grew up with the neighbor whose name is Cole, and when she stopped coming to town to visit for Christmas, he started resenting her, especially for some things that she said before she left for the last time. So they do not like each other. He does not like her. She's kind of like confused and trying to be very bubbly about it, but doesn't quite know why Cole hates her. But there's this Christmas contest, I guess, that the town has, and they both sign up for it. He signs up for it out of spite. She signs up for it because her grandmother or her great aunt forces her to. Great aunt, not grandmother. The chaos ensues. They go at it with each other. They are trying to sabotage each other's work a little bit, and it's just very chaotic, super funny, super cute. There are some very spicy scenes in this book, which I knew to expect from Megan Quinn, but overall I had a very fun time with this one. It is also a very chunky book though, and by the end of it, I was kind of like ready for the story to be done. It was very long to me, and I have a hard time with longer books, but overall this one very much did hold my attention. I also give this book 4 stars. Very much, I guess, in the mood for holiday romances, because out of the 3 Christmas books that I read, all of them were 4 stars or higher, which is very rare for me, especially in like a single reading vlog. So that was very lucky of me. Very much makes you want to read all the Christmas romance, but I did love this one. Megan Quinn's books do tend to be on the longer side, but the payoff tends to be really worth it, especially for like a romance. I feel like they're kind of on the longer side, but super fun. Would recommend this one. This is the book that I believe put Megan Quinn on the New York Times bestseller list for the first time, which is super cool. Very excited for this author about that. I would love to get a physical copy of this book sometime soon and also reread it next year, but not sure if I'll end up doing that because it is on Kindle Unlimited. But I did end up really enjoying this one, and if you're looking for kind of a more humorous book to like One Day in December, which I have right here, would recommend How My Neighbor Stole Christmas. It definitely gives off more like kooky, silly holiday vibes versus an emotional holiday read, so very fun. Had a great time with this one. I've got 3 more books that I read in November. First up is The Night We Lost Him by Laura Dave. I am doing a review video for this on my channel in the next couple of days, so keep an eye out for that. But this is a contemporary fiction mystery, I guess, about our main character Nora, whose father dies after falling off a cliff. And Nora and her half-brother are trying to figure out if her father accidentally fell or unalived himself or was actually murdered. So you follow them trying to figure out what actually happened to their father, while also getting some very deep character studies into both Nora as a character as well as their father, whose perspective we follow in the past, and how heartbreak and grief and love can make people make certain choices and do certain things. And I thought that this book was a very powerful testament of character studies and identities and heartbreak and grief and joy and love, and I really loved it. I gave this book 4 stars. I did talk about this a lot in my review video for this one, but it wasn't quite a 5-star read for me because of some of the distance that I felt in this book between the characters. It was very hard to fully get settled into the book because I just felt like there was such a big gap between myself and what was going on, and I couldn't quite get into the story because of that distance that I felt. But it was a beautiful book. If you're looking for a book with great quotes in it, I would recommend this one because there are so many good ones that made me want to cry. Next up, I have The Last Word by Taylor Adams, another Book of the Month book, which is very exciting. I'm almost done with the Book of the Month challenge. I think I can get there in December. But this is a thriller about a girl who, or a young woman, I guess, who is on this secluded beach house sitting, and a killer is stalking her, and the killer happens to be the author of a book that she recently 1-star reviewed on Amazon. And so he is attacking her and is determined to kill her by the night's end. This book was super crazy to me. I gave it 3 stars. I did really like it. I thought it was very different for this author just based off having read 2 of his other books, and I really enjoyed it, but also I couldn't quite figure out what was real and what was not, and what all the parts of the book meant, if that makes sense. This book was crazy. From like chapter 4, things start happening and I had no idea how to respond to any of it. I've not read a book like this before in terms of like following a serial killer who is following a 1-star reviewer for their book and justifying what he's doing, but also claiming that he's going to use her murder to write his next book. It was very unique to me and very weird too, but I didn't hate that at all about this book. I think there were just a lot of moving parts in this one, and I was confused, especially by the end of it. And kind of like in the reappearance of Rachel Price, I thought that the plot twists try to do too much, and so by the end of it I was kind of like, well, we took this a step too far, and I was kind of over everything. But I did have a fun time with this one. I didn't love it as much as I've loved 2 of his other thrillers, but I did like this one. I gave it 3 stars. I would love to read more from this author. This book came out last year, so I'm not sure if he's published a book since then, but I would love to read more from this author at some point in the future. I'm just not sure what publication for Taylor Adams looks like, but this was a very wild thriller. If you love isolating settings and serial killers and cat and mouse hunts, would maybe recommend this one. It's just very, very chaotic. Not all bad though, but there's a lot that happens in this one. The final book that I read in November, I recently finished like 2 days ago, and that was Just Don't Fall by Emma St. Clair. This is a clean hockey romance about our main character, Parker, who is the social media manager for a minor league hockey team, and Logan, who is kicked off his pro team and comes to play for them. They have a past. Logan and Parker grew up together, and he left around his 18th birthday without any explanation and went pro, I think almost immediately. But they are reunited, of course, and you get second chance dating in this one, and you get a fake dating trope as well. And it was very cute, very entertaining. There were some pretty cringe dialogue and descriptive moments in this book that kind of just made me giggle because they were a little bit silly. And I'm also not quite sure it made sense that he was 30, because the way that they talked and interacted and lived, it just kind of seemed like they were more college aged, if that makes sense. But he mentions halfway into the book that he is 30, which kind of threw me for a loop. I also felt like I would have loved to see more about their pasts and not just the present, because I feel like that could have explained a lot more of their connection that they had and why she was still so in love with him after all these years apart. But overall, I did like this one. It was cute. It very much gives off fall vibes in a small town, and so I can never complain about that. I love a good small town romance, and I did enjoy this one. Very cute. I've said that like 4 times about this book. Not my favorite romance that I've ever read, but I did like it, and I would definitely check out more from this series. I think this series is actually done by multiple authors, which is pretty cool, but I would love to check out more. I'm just not sure. This was my favorite one, and I'm not sure how the rest of the series lines up to it, but I'm guessing it follows players from the same hockey team. Not quite sure, I have not done any research into that, but I did like it. 3 stars. Read it for the book club that I co-host, and it was a fun time. Those are all the books that I read in the month of November. It was a really great reading month for me, I would say, especially as I've been busy with school and work, of course, and also prepping for Bookmas, because I am attempting to film 12 videos for Bookmas this year like I have done the past 2 years. So very much a fun reading month. A lot of these books I've read for vlogs or book review videos that'll be featured in Bookmas, so keep an eye out for those videos coming out if they haven't already. But overall, a really fun month, and I'm so glad that I was able to hit a bunch of physical books on my TBR, because that knocked down a very good chunk of my unread bookshelves, so I love that a lot. If you've read any great books in the month of November, feel free to comment down below and let me know. I would love to hear your favorite read from the past month. But that's all that I have for today's video. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.